Welcome back to another edition of Through the Smoke, a Miami Hurricanes football and recruiting podcast here on the 24/7 Sports Network. David Lake, joined as always by Gabby Urrutia. We're here to discuss how Miami's getting screwed out of the college football playoff, but I think Miami, and I think you and I, Gabby, are confident that will be fixed by the time of the final ranking on Sunday. But we're going to share all our thoughts on that situation. We're going to kind of recap an uneventful but still exciting and worth celebrating National Signing Day. And we also want to touch on a little bit of maybe portal preview talk. Portal opens in January this year, and we can maybe lay the groundwork as to, positions, broad, big picture idea of maybe what Miami's looking to accomplish in the portal. And maybe at the end, we're going to be joined by a special guest. So stay tuned for that. So before we jump into things, want to, of course, highlight two of our sponsors, Canes Connection. Miami just signed a top 10 class in the ACC. This is monumental stuff as it relates to like hard work and pulling it off. To me, it just shows this Miami program is going in a big time direction because it is hard to do that in the ACC. Top 10 class in the ACC, monumental effort type stuff. So talent acquisition never stops. Again, portal coming up here in January. So go support those guys at canesconnection.com any way you can. Also want to highlight our guy, Nick Musarino. If you've been injured in any type of accident, whether that's trucking accident, boating accident, slip and fall, Uber accident, Lyft accident, Nick Musarino is the personal injury attorney you should contact at 561-960-9870 or visit his website at flinjury.law. All right, Gabby, we haven't recorded a podcast all week. There's just a lot going on. We're busy running a website in addition to trying to keep the podcast going, but a lot to dive into,
Yep.
right? And so let's start with the college football playoff in this latest ranking, right? It was interesting. And it was also, politician talk by Hunter Yurachek, the committee chair, who I understand has a difficult job going out and trying to have to talk about these rankings every week. And I don't know if defend them is the right word, but he is talking about them. Miami is number 12. BYU is number 11. Notre Dame is number 10. Alabama is number 9. Those are the main teams to know as it relates to Miami in this college football playoff ranking. As we've made clear here on the podcast for weeks now, the mark you got to hit if you're Miami is number 10 because there's going to be two conference champions that make the top 12, make the 12 team field that rank below Miami, right? So you got to hit that top 10 number. Again, the committee is still using the buffer of BYU in between Notre Dame and Miami. The committee, which I think is the correct move, but still inexplicably, um, flip-flopped Alabama and Notre Dame to protect Alabama, who's playing in the SEC championship game this week.
Mhm.
Alabama should have been ranked ahead of Notre Dame this whole time, but it does look weird, putting it in the light the week of the SEC championship game and
Yeah.
seeing them
On a
flip
week
that.
where Alabama played bad, like they didn't play great, like
They haven't played great for a month, but they've made the SEC
right.
championship game, right? So they're going to protect that, which I kind of understand. And anyways, if you're going off resume, Alabama should be ahead of Notre Dame. If you're going off eye test, Notre Dame should be ahead of Miami. Miami should also be ahead of a lot of these teams in the SEC. But anyways, Gabby, I've kind of stated my case. I've kind of written about it on the website.
Mhm.
I'm curious just how you process these latest college football playoff rankings and how it relates to Miami. Are you like ever since we recorded after that Pitt game, I kind of made it clear, like, look, man, I think Miami's in. And the results the rest of that day, Saturday, didn't fall Miami's way, but I still was pretty confident Miami was getting in because of this silly, Miami being next to Notre Dame scenario where they're not going to put number 10 Notre Dame in over number 11 Miami. We're kind of staring the scenario in the face right now. Uh, I'm curious, are you confident? What's your confidence level, assuming BYU loses?
Mhm.
that Miami gets in.
Assuming BYU loses, I'm pretty confident, and I think that's kind of just like the crux of this argument, right? It's BYU kind of ending up out of the picture. They lost by what was it, 4 touchdowns to Texas Tech earlier this season. They play again, and I think in a situation where BYU loses, period, but potentially loses big again by a couple scores, I think that that's going to be enough to flip-flop Miami and BYU at the very least, right? At least put Miami in a situation where it's number 10 Notre Dame and number 11 Miami, which I think is how they kind of set it up when they flip-flopped Notre Dame and Alabama. Like, hey, look, if BYU really does lose and there's a situation where I don't know. At one point, it was they had to be in comparative pods, and now I guess they need to be one spot behind each other for them to factor in this head-to-head situation. But I think you won't have a choice but to factor in the head-to-head in a situation where BYU loses, and now you have to compare Miami to Notre Dame directly. So in that argument, it would be the first time ever, right? You see all these graphs and people are pulling up
Yeah.
all these different types of things. It would be the first time ever that the college football playoff has 2 teams with the same record with a head-to-head result that is obviously identifiable, and you choose to put the loser of that head-to-head result in over the winner of that head-to-head result. So it would be sending a terrible message. It would be setting a bad precedent to keep Notre Dame ahead of Miami in a situation where they are ranked right behind the others. So, and that I think that's where my confidence lies, David. And the kind of crossing my fingers that the committee is going to do the logical,
Common sense.
responsible thing, yeah, common sense thing, and that's to put Miami one spot ahead of Notre Dame and have Notre Dame be 11 and Miami number 10. In that situation, Miami gets in. Notre Dame, unfortunately, gets left out. I feel like it's a lot, man. And I think when it comes down to it, I'm nervous about whether they will actually make that happen because of the Notre Dame situation. Um,
Look,
I don't know.
are you talking about the Alabama buffer in this? Like, if Alabama loses, are
Right.
they go? And look, where I'm at, like, to me, man, like, if we're gonna keep doing this buffer thing to just keep avoiding the real conversation of Miami and Notre Dame, what are we doing? Like, to me, and look, I do think the Alabama buffer situation is something to be aware of and track. Like,
hmm
I'm not denying that. But to me, this comes down to BYU.
Yeah,
BYU
same.
wins, they're in.
Yeah.
Um, if Alabama loses to Georgia, to me, however you want to put it, like to me, the buffer thing is irrelevant. It's still a Miami and Notre Dame conversation. Uh, you know, at first it's, oh, Miami and Notre Dame weren't in the same pods. Then it's, oh, Miami and Notre Dame are in the same pods, but there's still 2 teams between them. Then it's, oh, Miami and Notre Dame are in the same pods, but there's BYU between them now, and they're not side by side. So we don't talk about the head to head when they went toe to toe on the field. And it's like, what are we doing, guys?
the
Like,
men the mental gymnastics going on here to avoid this conversation. And that's where I'm at. It's just like, are they really just trying to find any excuse possible to not put Miami and Notre Dame next to each other so that they don't have to make that? It doesn't seem to me like they want to make that decision
they
at
don't.
all. They don't want to make that decision. And the thing with Alabama, so if BYU loses, I do feel like they're out because I feel like they're just right there on the borderline. But if Alabama
I
loses,
think
if
Bama's
Alabama,
in no
yeah,
matter
that's
what.
the right. I'm saying I don't know if they're gonna
So leave them at
punish
9.
two teams that yeah punish 2 teams that play for a conference championship when everyone else is idle, right? Like I think there has to be some like reward or some sort of protection for playing in your conference championship game. For BYU, again, I think a lot of it could be based on the result. Like if BYU loses on a game-winning field goal by Texas Tech, like I think we might be having a different discussion. I don't know if you feel the same way, David, but like
Uh, I'll say
maybe.
this. I'll say this. Like, yes, this is all going to be discussed. Like, I'm not denying that. But when you look at BYU's resume, they are a team in all these metrics that ranks either 14 or 15, right? The only metric that they have that is top 10 is strength of record. You look at Miami, Notre Dame, even Alabama, they are top 10. Well, Miami, Notre Dame are top 10 in all of the metrics. Um, Alabama's top 10 in 2 of the 3. And I'm talking about FEI, S&P plus, and I'm talking about FPI.
Mhm.
So these metrics, Miami and Notre Dame are the better team compared to BYU. BYU's strength of record, which means, yes, they've handled business against the teams they've played, but they haven't played a hard schedule. Their schedule's like 35th in the country, which still slightly better than Miami's, but uh, the metrics of S&P Plus, FEI, FPI tell you that the way they perform is not top 10 worthy. And so I think it's just win and you're in, lose and you're out,
Yeah.
cut and dry with BYU. Alabama, I think is different in this regard. Like Alabama's in. And so if they're in, to me, their floor is number 9. Lock them in there. And then let's finally have this debate between Miami and Notre Dame.
Yeah. So
Um,
so you would think that Miami Notre Dame are basically either got to be 8 or 10 is what you're saying? You think Miami Notre Dame should both get in this situation, or only one are going to be able to get
no,
in?
no, only one. Only one of those is it. Only one of those.
Yeah.
I think Alabama stays at 9 no matter what, frankly.
Yeah.
And look, in my opinion, this is me talking. This is not saying what I think the committee will do. Notre Dame and Miami are both top 10 teams. They're, we've said this. They're both better than Oklahoma.
Hmm.
They're both better than Ole Miss. I think Miami and Notre Dame are both better than Alabama, but they're not gonna take out Alabama. So, you know, to me, it's about and also too, like I was on the conference call this week with Hunter Yurachek, and I asked him, okay, when you look at the resumes, do you feel like Notre Dame's resume is significantly better than Miami's? And all he did was tap dance. He didn't answer the question. But one thing this week he keeps referencing is Notre Dame's on a 10-game winning streak and Miami's on a 4-game winning streak. And it's like, okay, dude, like if we're now like Miami just keeps bashing these different comparison points out of the park, and now we're at winning streak talk. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, like can we just compare the resumes? And by the way, in those resumes, they played one team beat the other team.
Yeah.
Uh, these resumes are this, and you mentioned the head to head, right? Let's go through that. How they are honoring head to head everywhere in the top 25, except with the same records.
Right. And not even always with the same records. Look
Right.
at Texas and Vanderbilt.
UGA beat Ole Miss. Number 3, UGA. Number 6, Ole Miss, both 11-1. Number 4, Texas Tech beat BYU, 4 and 11, both 11-1. Oklahoma, this is where the committee is like wrapping their head in a pretzel and they don't know what to do with this situation. Oklahoma is number 8. They beat number 9, Alabama. Both are 10-2. Alabama is better than Oklahoma, but they lost that game. But they're respecting the head to head, right?
Right.
Number 9, Alabama beat number 14, Vanderbilt. Both of those are 10-2. Number 16, USC beat number 19, Michigan. Both of those are 9-3. As you referenced this week, they did this week to themselves. Texas is 9-3. They beat a 10-2 Vanderbilt. And now Texas jumps Vanderbilt after their impressive win, or I don't know if it's impressive, after their win against Texas A&M. So all these head-to-heads are mattering, except for one,
Right.
Miami over Notre Dame.
And it goes back, I think, years too, like just with, I guess it's different committees and
Last
all
year,
that stuff.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. It goes
same
back
deal.
to it's all the head-to-heads are being respected. And it's just like, there's just this one glaring omission. And it's just like, you can, it wouldn't make sense. Like, how do you justify that? Uh,
Right,
and it's just, to me, this is just this is a ridiculous conversation. And I can't believe we're just still here at this point. And again, I just think that this is ultimately why, like, I want to say I'm confident because my common sense tells me that this is the clear decision. I just, I don't buy that they're going to leave Notre Dame out, man. I honestly have a hard time buying that. Even if everything breaks Miami's way, that they're going to have to make the decision. Like, Miami's going in and Notre Dame is going out. Like,
right.
got Mark D'Antoni on the committee, who was Marcus Freeman's like primary recruiter at Ohio State and
Oh, I
coached
got the
him.
tinfoil hat for you.
Oh
Let me know
yeah.
when you're ready for
Oh,
it.
I'm ready. I started digging a little bit. Yes, you start getting these little tidbits. Like there's some I got some questions about the committee.
Okay, so
Let's hear it.
this is more of like a way to maybe try and understand. the committee chair, Hunter Yurachek, how he is processing. And again, I'm projecting. I don't know that this is the case of how he is processing the Miami Notre Dame debate, right? But Hunter Yurachek, let me put my tinfoil hat on. Hunter Yurachek, are you aware, Gabby? He is the athletic director at Arkansas.
Right.
So Yurachek in Arkansas hosted Notre Dame for a game this year. Notre Dame played at Arkansas, and the Irish completely throttled the Razorbacks 56 to 13. Completely non-competitive game. Notre Dame kind of established itself as like, okay, we're now going to go on a run. We're that team. 56 to 13 at Arkansas, right? So Yurachek was there, saw it in person. I think too, right? Arkansas is in the SEC,
Hmm.
which means who else does Arkansas play this year? Arkansas played Ole Miss. The score of that game, Ole Miss won 41-35, one score game.
Ooh.
They also played Texas A&M. The score to that game, Arkansas lost 45-42, one score game. So those are two teams in the college football playoff. They also played Texas, lost that game 52 to 37. So lost that game by a slimmer margin than they'd lost to Notre Dame.
Right.
They also played Tennessee. They lost that game 34-31. So if I'm Hunter Yurachek and I'm an SEC guy and I've watched my team get hammered by Notre Dame and then have a bunch of one score losses to SEC teams that we are putting in the top 6, 7, 8 in the country in Ole Miss, Texas A&M, another bubble team that we played closer in Texas than we played Notre Dame. I'm just asking, like, is Hunter Yurachek kind of leading the charge of some sort of thinking of like, well, I saw Notre Dame play in person, and trust me, this is a top 10 team in the country because we lost to Notre Dame worse than we lost to Ole Miss and Texas A&M, and it wasn't even close. Now,
Yeah.
if you're a logical person, you would maybe say to yourself, well, okay, yes, Notre Dame did crush your team, but there's a team out there that beat Notre Dame.
Right.
So maybe you should also be impressed by that team. So
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
feel like
Was
everything that you
that
just
tinfoil hatty?
no, no, you're right. Like I could see that being the line of thinking, but like how that automatically doesn't translate so to wow, so Miami must be really good if they beat that Notre Dame team that throttled Arkansas, who had all these one-score games against these, SEC college football playoff contenders. I just think I just think anything, and we've talked about this, right? Notre Dame is deserving of this. I am not against Notre Dame. Like I'm not for getting Notre Dame out of this conversation. Like
They're a
I
top
think
10
Notre
team.
Dame deserves to be in the college football playoff. I said this, right? I just think as much as highly as we think about Notre Dame is only that should only make Miami more impressive. And that's where
Yeah,
I get lost in all of this. It's just like, okay, yes, if we think Notre Dame is a top 10 team, then you have to think that Miami is a top 10 team. And I
right.
get it. There's a lot of good teams and there's a lot of teams in this discussion and things definitely didn't break Miami's way. But I think at some point you need to look at the situation and be like, hey, yes, we love Notre Dame and we love Miami. But at the end of the day, as much as we love Notre Dame, this Miami team beat that Notre Dame team. Again, and it was pretty convincing. I know everyone likes to box score watch and they had to hit a field goal at the end, but that game, that was just like, Miami kind of reeled it all back when they got up, what, 26-7 or something like that, or 24-7. And, they obviously, whatever. Notre Dame made some plays. There was a wild CJ Carr prayer throw that fell into the end zone and worked out for them. There was some stuff there, but there's no way that you can have the discussion. To me, you can have the Notre Dame discussion without Miami because they played. And we're sitting here at
Right.
the end of the season. This thing's over as far as the regular season. The whole resumes are set. There's too much. There's too many different ways that we can compare Miami and Notre Dame as far as the head-to-head matchup, the common opponents, all of the different things to just look at this thing and just you can't look at Notre Dame and just say, yeah, they deserve to get in. Miami doesn't. To me, it just doesn't. That just does not check out. And I just think I'm concerned that that's just where we're going. I think Miami should get in. They should be in. I just don't know if they're going to make that call.
I think they will.
I
Do you
hope.
not? I mean,
I hope
look,
so.
who out there is not on Miami's side besides Joey Galloway?
The College Football Playoff Committee.
Right.
The people making the decisions, it feels like they're the ones that are not on Miami's side either. And yeah, Joey Galloway,
But
public enemy number one.
what I'm saying is I think there's going to be a lot of public pressure to be
Yeah,
like,
well, I think there already
hey
is.
guys, like what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
look, College Game Day is gonna air on Saturday morning. I would be surprised if Nick Saban doesn't talk about this situation and say, guys, we gotta we gotta respect the games. The game was played, and also Miami's a good team.
Hmm.
So
Well, he's already advocate. He advocated for Miami
he
very
has,
like
but he hasn't come out and straight out and said, like, guys, this ranking is off. And
yeah.
I think if he does that, you know how they're gonna bow down to Nick Saban.
Hmm.
So, anyways, I I like Miami's hand. I think that's a way to put this, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Now, again, this all gets blown to smithereens if BYU somehow beats Texas Tech.
Right.
All right, let's go to National Signing Day because it was a great day. Miami signed a top 10 class. Last I looked, it was still top 10. That can all change based on other teams adding guys, but that hadn't happened, I don't think, to this point. So, top 10 class, top class in the ACC, Gabby. Um, they added Karsten Bush, a nice, you know, borderline 3, 4 star linebacker to bolster that position group, the talent and depth there. Overall, Gabby, when you just look at this class and you process talent acquisition
Hmm.
as an important phase of the program, it's the fourth full cycle for Mario Cristobal. How do you process just where things are at with this class, the program, etc.?
I really like it, David. And I think just you look at this class and to me it's just depth, right? Like I look at this class and I just see a complete class that's filled at key positions of need, especially on the line of scrimmage, both sides. I think it's 5 or 6 offensive linemen, a ton of defensive linemen, which is huge, especially just where Miami's trending and the way that this and the way they're just they're storing talent. They're just stacking up all these guys, especially in comparison to the ACC. And then you look what they did on the back end, right? That was a couple years ago. We were sitting in a situation where Miami just didn't have a pulse in the defensive backfield. They went to the transfer portal. They answered a lot of those questions, but now they're backfilling on the high school side where it's almost just like there's too much. Like there's too much depth. Like there's a ton of guys that are coming in, and it's all quality players. I see future starters all over this
Yeah.
class, guys that are going to make a difference at this program, whether it be starring at positions, whether it be being quality rotational guys, giving Miami just a solid foundation and floor of just good football players. I think that this class is going to be one that really kind of sets Miami up to kind of just take that next step because I think we talk again, it's a war of attrition, right? These football games. And I think when you start getting into the 2026, 2027, 2028 seasons, with what Miami's doing at the high school level, they're maintaining a ground that's going to allow them to be highly competitive in every single situation that they play in because they're just adding really good football players and just and adding guys that can just help and contribute and just be quality backups. So I really like this class. The star power, you got the Jackson Cantwell, right? And then outside of that, I think it's just guys that I feel like are gonna make plays here, that they're gonna get on the field, they're gonna get some burn, they're gonna develop, guys that are gonna take some more time than others, but all people that I feel like just are going to contribute to winning games here. So I really do like this class. It's 30 members. Roster construction is so different now too with the 105
Hmm.
and with the new transfer portal window. And I think classes like this help Miami to continue to be homegrown, which is what they want to be, right? I think there's a desire to be homegrown and go into the transfer portal for high quality pieces. Like you're not going to the transfer portal to fill depth. You're going to the transfer portal to add quality and to just elevate and just make things better. So I think that's where classes like this help Miami get to that point. And I think we're getting closer just with the groups that they've stacked, beyond this, before this, to just get to that point where it's like this roster's in a really, really good spot right now.
This is, I mean this as a compliment, but this was a quiet signing day for
Mhm.
Miami. They still signed a top 10 class. Do you think that's evidence of like, or continued evidence of, man, things are just in a really good spot from all, results on the field because it certainly helps to close the season strong
Mhm.
and have a good season. And also just, man, again, this is technically the fifth cycle for Mario when you consider the transition class, but the fourth
Mhm.
full cycle and just the level of like, man, things are buttoned up. There's not
Yeah.
much chaos anymore in the talent. Like, do you remember those first couple cycles? And look, there was factors too with like NIL being a new thing and, you know, that put everything, uh, you know, that changed the trajectory of everything. But now it just seems like everything's buttoned up and the evaluation side of things, the negotiation side of things is all just in a really good spot.
Yeah, I think it's in a tremendous spot. Miami had 30 players signed by 12:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah,
Like there, you look around, if you follow this stuff, you see programs that were announcing signings at 10:30 p.m. on Thursday night.
right,
Like there are schools that had to fight and claw to sign their top players. Miami had the number one offensive line prospect in the country and had him signed by 8:30 in the morning.
right.
Like it was no drama. Everyone that they got, and I think there's something to just being buttoned up as an operation where that there wasn't it was 30 players and it was according to the 24/7 sports composite 20 blue chip prospects. So these are guys that had options. These were players that Miami had to fight off some programs for, but at the end of the day, Wednesday morning came and that paper and that fax machine, that metaphorical fax machine, since it doesn't really exist anymore, was just buzzing with all this paperwork coming through. All these guys sending in their stuff and locking in. It was very, very low drama. Karsten Bush committed in the afternoon. They had his paperwork long before that. So that wasn't even like a drama, wait till the last
Right.
second type of thing with Wisconsin, who had had some buzz previously. Definitely buttoned up as a personnel department, as everything. And then just the trajectory of the program too, back to back winning seasons. The people are seeing the direction Miami wants to go. There's proof of concept of just winning and sustaining winning, which is the hardest part, right? We talk about
Yep.
how sustaining the success is harder than the flash in the pan 1 win 10 win season. You win 10 wins and you can drop back to 6 or 7 wins the year after, or you can win or 2 wins or whatever the case is. So I think I think it's just a testament to this program, this operation. Mario Cristobal, Dennis Smith, Taylor Edwards, all those guys in the personnel department that do just such an excellent job of keeping this running a tight ship, because I think they do, and making sure their guys understand what the standard and the expectation is, and they got it done. So kudos to them. I do really like this class that they put together.
I think it's worth hammering too, just how number one, Miami, like you mentioned, is it's dominating the ACC in recruiting, right? Florida State has the 14th best class, but there is a wide gulf between Miami's class and Florida State's class.
Mhm.
It's when you look at the ranking scores, Miami's 24 points better than Florida State's class. That's so Miami's now signed the top class in the ACC 4 straight cycles. That's the widest gulf between Miami and whoever is the second best team in the ACC for that year during this 4 year stretch. And you dig into like Florida State's class, it's just another, we've said this, it's just another Mike Norvell class of like
Mhm.
a bunch of slot receivers, a bunch of DBs, and they're not getting players that actually win games,
Yeah.
like the line of scrimmage players.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, and to that point too, Florida State and Florida, Miami is winning the state of Florida as it relates to the big three in recruiting. Now, Miami's recruiting nationally and pulling great players from around the country. Uh, but I went and looked, Gabby. I added the recruiting scores during this 4 year stretch. And over those 4 years, Miami is plus 996.37 in the recruiting score for the
Oh,
total. And they are plus 106 over FSU for the total. So that's a difference of about plus 25 points per cycle. And that's just the difference
it's
between
huge.
yeah, the number, again, if you want to put it in the number 10 to the number 15, 16, you do that over 4 years, your rosters aren't even close. So,
Right.
you know, I think to the layman, like, okay, the number 10 class versus the number 14 class doesn't seem like significantly better, but these classes aren't in the same universe. Miami's closer to being a number 5 class
Yeah.
than Florida State is to being a number 10 class.
Yeah. Miami's closer to being a number one class than the
Yeah.
number, like the gap. And that's, I think, like that's important context too. Like Miami's like mathematically, right? This when you look at the team rankings, this
Yeah.
it's all math, right? Like all the numbers is all math. So it's when you it's more important almost to look at how much the score separates than just like the order, right? Because I think that the score tells you more, gives you more
Right.
context than the order. So and you look at even Miami and Florida State, like the gap is massive. And then Florida State also signed more players than Miami. So like Florida State's just took a bunch of players.
Yeah. What's their average
Their average is
player rating?
89.04.
Okay.
So that's not 4 star. That's not a they're basically they're under, their
Just
average,
under 4 star.
yeah, just under a 4 star. Miami's is 91.08. So their Miami's average is a strong solid 4 star.
Right.
Again, the baseline is 90. So 91 just over the course of 30 players
That's
tells you
big.
that
Yeah.
you have a big that's a big advantage or that's a big gap between just that baseline 90 more than maybe it sounds or expects. So yeah, I think that this class just again, within the scope of the ACC, within the scope of just like the competition, Miami signed the number 2 ranked class that's not in the Big Ten or the SEC. Notre Dame signed the number 3 class, so they topped the charts there, and they're doing a really good job on the recruiting front too. And again, the future is very bright for those guys in South Bend, but Miami is right there. Miami's building this roster in a way that I think is going to continue to put them in conversations to sign top 10 classes, to sign top, potentially 7 classes this 2027 cycle. I think is going to be big because I think we talked about this cycle being like, oh, Miami finally got over the hump and won 10 games. And now it's at a point where now they've kind of sustained it with back-to-back 10-win seasons with a lot returning and a lot that Miami might be a preseason ranked top 7 team
Now,
next year.
now the door's open
Yeah,
for
exactly.
anyone in the country. Like,
Right. And especially if Miami gets into this college football
right,
playoff, there's going to be a whole new tier and a whole new,
right.
Miami's already recruiting in, the top-ish tier. They can dip into the top, that A
Yes.
list of prospects and get one, a Jackson Cantwell type. I think this 2027 cycle is just going to gain them a whole new level of access and accessibility to
Yep.
the elite prospects. So I think that these classes, this 2027 class coming up, I think is going to be a really, really exciting one for Miami fans. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think this might be the cycle I'm most excited to cover because I think that it could be potentially special as far as what they can do.
And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, Miami's not limiting themselves to just being a regional or local
Hmm.
recruiting operation. They showed this cycle they can go nationally and get who they want, get who, which, I think that's always a good thing. Let's shift now to portal talk. We can go into this as long as we want. Um, but portal talk, portal opens in January. They just signed a big high school class. So if we're talking numbers, where do you think Miami is right now with numbers for portal?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be just from what I've gathered, David. I'm not last portal cycle. Well, they end, I think, between the two windows, what it was like 16 guys or so that they brought in. I don't think it's going to be that big. There's a lot of youth on this team, a lot of guys that they want to retain, that they want to bring back. I think it's going to be a priority to get, guys back like Ahmad Moten, right? And Justin Scott, of course. And, obviously Malachi Tony and the Bryce Fitzgerald, all those guys. Like Miami's going to have to retain a lot of the really good players that they have. And I think it's going to create a situation where as kind of talking about it earlier, where you can go into the portal and you can just find high quality. Maybe the numbers might not be there, but the numbers they're going to bring in, they expect to bring in impact transfers. So again, this is one window. This is 15 days or whatever the case is. I expect Miami to go get, I don't know, 8 to maybe 10-ish, if 10 might even be too much,
Yeah.
high impact type of players that can come in. I think when you talk position, I mean, I think quarterback, of course, is on the table, right? I
Hmm.
think with Akeem Messidor and Ruben Bain graduating, if Miami can go find a big time pass rusher off the edge,
Mhm.
I think that that's definitely on the table. You got Jacoby Thomas not transfer, Jacoby Thomas graduating. Miami could go find another high level safety type of starter, impact starter, and Jacoby Thomas just laid the foundation for coming to Miami, elevating your stock, playing really good football. So I think wide receiver, a true, maybe outside wide receiver one, CJ Daniels is moving on, maybe someone that in that sort of role where you can go out and just find a playmaker. So I think that it's guys like that that you know, I think that are on the table for Miami during this transfer portal cycle. But I really do believe this is going to be an intentional, we're not filling in depth. We're not scrambling to try to fix this roster that's broken because there's all these holes and all that stuff. I think this roster's set and they need to just go find guys that are just going to help elevate it and take it to that next level.
Yes, and let's discuss it in these terms too. If you were ranking the importance, and let's just rank three positions,
Yeah.
first, second, third, how would you rank them?
Yeah, quarterback would be first because I think
Yep,
that that's just the
yep.
obvious. Miami's gonna have to go. I think Miami is gonna go get a quarterback, so they're gonna be in the market for it, and they're always prime players in it. So quarterback, defensive end, I think is number two. Talk about these premium positions, right? Quarterback, obviously, quarterback and impacting the quarterback are two of the most important things that you can do on a football field. So I think a prime elite pass rusher, I think are probably two of the most important. And then I would probably go wide receiver, like true, Malachi Tony is a star in the slot and what he can do with it. I think getting a, 6'2", 6'3" plus outside receiver that has done it that has been already an impact player at the college level. I think finding a guy like that in that mold is super important for Miami to just again take this offense to the next level as they've produced, right? There's proof of concept with this offense and the way it's produced. So I think now it's time for them to go get that elite outside weapon.
I would agree with that. I'm agreeing with those positions. To me, I also look at linebacker and I'm like, man,
Hmm.
it's still to me, it's still something that I
Yeah.
think I think that needs to be addressed just from like a stability standpoint.
Hmm.
Like a a guy you can count on. I don't know if you necessarily need to pay big money and get an elite guy like you're saying with quarterback, edge rush, and wide receiver. Um, but linebacker to me is like an important one to fill.
Yeah.
Um,
Would you cornerback it, kind of like what they did last year with the cornerbacks? Would you just like let's
uh,
see if we can, or you think they can fix it with one or two guys? Like how much work do you think needs to kind of get done in that linebacker room?
I think
Just one veteran?
one veteran that's played 1,500 to 2,000 snaps at least. And okay, you know what you're getting. Look, Motore has his issues, but he is kind of what they need again, I think. Like,
Hmm.
you know what you're getting in Motore. Solid linebacker. Yes, he has some deficiencies, but I think he's been a nice addition. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think he's been solid and steady. So.
Right. So similar type of mold as that.
Yeah. Well, there's a
Uh,
disgruntled linebacker that doesn't stop tweeting all about his team
oh,
all
really?
over.
Who is it? I don't know who
It's
you're.
Tony Rojas at Penn State.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, yeah.
he's
And Miami recruited him.
Miami recruited him. I mean, I don't know if this is still true, but when he was in high school, I think his sister lived here and was like a teacher here in
Mm.
Miami. I don't know if that's still the case, but hey, if they don't hire your boy Terry Smith and you're looking for a new home, Tony Rojas, come on down.
He would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, let's take a break here. And on the other side, we're going to be joined by a special guest. All right, we are back and we are joined by a special guest. We have head coach Mario Cristobal on with us here at on the show. And coach, we got a lot to dive into here with you, so just want to jump into it. And again, like you're here, obviously, we're in a position where, you have to. I know you're not a politician and you don't want to be a politician, but the college football playoff is putting you in a position where you have to campaign and go to war for your team. And you're happy to do that because you deserve to be in this college football playoff as it relates to a debate between you and Notre Dame. And so I'm just curious, like, we'll start here at the top. Like, how do you process just this whole situation of like, okay, Uh, you won a head-to-head game against Notre Dame. You have the same record as Notre Dame. You you want to dive into the advanced analytics, everything there between Miami and Notre Dame is pretty much even within one or two spots of each other. So you would think that would circle things back around to, okay, they played head to head on the field. But the College Football Playoff Committee right now has Notre Dame in, Miami out going into this conference championship game weekend. So just how do you process this whole situation, this whole ordeal, um, with what the College Football Playoff Committee has to, dive into and dissect and come to a decision here after this weekend?
Well, it's certainly different, right? It's as a former football player and a guy that's been coaching, I think coming up on 20, well, I guess almost 30 years. It's it's different, and so I make sure my focus is on reality, and that's the most important thing, making sure that the facts are presented because the facts do speak for themselves as it relates to anything competitive in the history of sports. And also because of the situation, making sure that the facts don't get distorted. You know what I mean? That
Right.
we don't take that we don't allow I don't know, outside forces take a head-to-head win, take common opponent superiority by us, and allow that to get twisted and contorted to hide or mask the fact that we're best and most deserving. So that's why I place my focus on to make sure that we always do everything that's necessary. But, kind of as opposed to last year where I felt like I had to be a debate because it felt like a jumble of teams that had a chance.
Right.
You could do this or you could do that because of this or because of that. We have a head to head. And in my opinion, anyone that's judging a situation, you would hope and pray that you have a head to head to go off of to make things clear. And luckily for us, we have that plus some more data that goes with it. And when you add on the fact that we're playing the best football, even better than we were ranked number two, I think it just makes our everything considering Miami as it relates to Miami stronger and more clear.
It seemed like coming into this final week of rankings, there was a narrative out there that Notre Dame has just played significantly better football than they did in week one, right? And Miami had the stumble in the middle with the two losses in 3 weeks. And yeah, they're turning it on here at the end, but Notre Dame has now won 10 straight.
Mhm.
Miami's only won four straight, right? This seems to be the latest narrative or explanation from the College Football Playoff Committee. I want to ask you, just in your opinion, right? Like when you watch, like to me, the game was pretty decisive, determined on the field in week one. And I think it's fair to recognize, yes, Notre Dame has improved. I also think it's fair to recognize Miami has improved as well. But when I look back at that game and think about, okay, let's do this let's do the exercise of the silly hypothetical of, well, if Miami Notre Dame and played today, that game would look much different. And I asked myself, would it really? Because when I look back at that game, I saw a Miami team that had a pretty sizable advantage at the line of scrimmage, both
Mhm.
lines of scrimmage. I don't know if that would necessarily change. I saw Miami have a veteran quarterback that had the advantage over an inexperienced quarterback. Now, Notre Dame's quarterback has improved and gained experience as the season has progressed, but at the end of the season, the totality of the season, Miami's quarterback had a better season than Notre Dame's quarterback still. And then I also see a defense that is better than Notre Dame still over the course of the entire season. And if you're boiling down, like, okay, the factors that matter most when it comes to having a successful college football playoff run, it would be quarterback, line of scrimmage play, and defense. You check those three boxes, you can go out and compete with any team in the country. And I still think that's the case if Miami and Notre Dame spot the ball today. I just don't know how much different the result of the game would be.
Right. Well, you make some great points, and I think the reason you play a game against each other is to avoid all the hypotheticals,
Right.
to avoid the make-believes, what ifs and whatnot. And I think, just about, I mean, if you look at every team in the field, I mean, a lot of teams have improved throughout the course of the year, but I think it's very, I guess it would be just a lot more fair if we just face the reality of that improving throughout the course of the season against a schedule that contains the last place team in the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC, a couple group of five teams. I think 3, 2, and 10 teams, a 3 and 9, a 4 and 8. That is drastically different. Showing improvement against that caliber of a schedule is drastically different than playing the University of Miami.
Right.
And every metric, number, and most importantly, the final scoreboard says that. And I want to say again, I mean, I respect everyone. If you can win 10 games in
Hmm.
a season, man, that's a tremendous accomplishment. And that's why the teams were being compared. I think again, the best part about all this stuff is the fact that they played each other, which is the overriding factor in all this. And if you want to add a little bit more to it, the common opponent comps are completely in Miami's favor. So that's what I want to continue. And when asked, I want to stay respectful because that's where I was raised. It's the right thing.
Sure.
You try not to get animated because as a competitor, it's like we played the game. We won,
Right.
like we won the game. 10.8
Right.
million people plus 70,000 in attendance, probably another 10,000 outside in the parking lot. So it's in fact it was moved to Sunday. Remember that? They moved the game to
Hmm.
Sunday to make sure that when you have an opportunity to leave no doubt that the whole world could see it. And so all those things taken into account. And then I add, again, if you look at the metrics of November, these last 4 weeks for Miami, I don't know if there's a team that has anything that's close to it on all phases, offense, defense, and special teams. And now we should be at almost complete health, maybe minus one guy. That's it.
Hmm.
As we head into the next couple of weeks. So I think your points are extremely valid. I hope the ones I'm making are coming I don't know, in the form of presenting information as opposed to
Sure.
because you have to, if it's even a discussion, you have to make sure that it's very, very clear that Miami is best and most deserving.
There's this idea of, you know, Miami needs to be concerned about because of the way that the ranking has been laid out going into conference championship game weekend, right? Alabama's sitting at number 9. There's and I think a valid concern from a Miami standpoint of, okay, is the committee going to do the move of creating a buffer again between Miami and Notre Dame and not have this conversation if Alabama falls to Georgia in the SEC championship game? To me, the way I view this weekend, coach, is look, BYU has a very cut and dry situation. If they win this weekend, they're in. They deserve it. Congrats to them. If BYU loses, they are put to the side. To me, the way I view it too with the SEC championship game is Alabama is in no matter what, right? And so to me, this still boils down to a Miami and Notre Dame conversation. I don't look, if Alabama's in no matter what, then just leave them at 9 or however the committee wants to rig this up. I think this still boils down to no matter what happens in the SEC championship game to a Miami and Notre Dame conversation. Would you agree with that belief or thought?
Oh, 100%. There's nothing else in the way of these two comps. And really for the sake of football, for the sake of the entire college football world and future, it's nothing else can get in the way of this, right? That's what it really comes down to. Obviously, teams have to take care of their business this weekend or not, and that can go in a different direction. But as it relates to that particular situation and spot, 100% I agree with you. This is a Miami Notre Dame thing, because at the end of the day, never in the history of the CFP, this quote has probably resonated a bunch
Hmm.
before. So never has a team or two teams have the same record and have played a game and the head-to-head loser advance while the winner stays behind. That's never happened. And it's for the right reasons because it's fair and it's what football was meant to be. So I know the committee's got a big job. We're going to continue to bring the facts ad nauseum, keep bringing them forward and shine a light on them because, again, Miami's best and most deserving.
I want to shift a little bit to signing day, right? This was also a big week for the program as it
Mhm.
relates to signing day. And we're a podcast that loves talent acquisition. We get in the weeds on recruiting and talent acquisition because it's the thing that makes everything go. It's the most important factor of every successful program. And look, I want to have this conversation. I mean this as a compliment, but this was the most drama-free signing day I've ever covered. And you signed a top 10 class, right? So no drama, a ton of talent. And I want to start this conversation here with like, in some ways, do you think that highlights just the health of the program right now and just another example of how far things have come since you first arrived here, right? You're delivering the results on the field, and now it's like a drama-free top 10 recruiting class of Miami, you know, guys with a bunch of dudes in this class,
No doubt.
drama-free.
No, amen. That is always the ideal for any coach. You want zero drama. If anything, maybe an addition, which we got one in Carson, but aside from that, I remember on the way, and that was one of the big fixes, is to get out of the decommitment world as it relates to building your team. And and that was always, over the course of I call this our fourth full cycle because the first one we had about 3 days to put one together. So this is our fourth full cycle, and you saw the numbers of decommitments dwindle, which is part of college football now, right? The hotel
Right.
reservation that you cancel. But absolutely, I think it's a sign of number one, stronger relationships in the process, coaches to recruits, recruits to our current roster, everybody in line. I think it's also a very strong sign of just program stability and trajectory because when that's the case, unless there's a super duper change at somewhere within the program, that's always a sign of stability. People want to go there regardless of circumstance or whatnot. So, and then also belief, trust and belief in a system and people that are going to fully invest their time, their energy, and their effort into challenging, developing these young men into being the very best that they could possibly be. So, and it's a national class, which is, I mean, Miami's an international city. The
Yep.
University of Miami attracts people from all over. This is I mean, I don't know how if you've taken a walk around campus lately. This thing is insane. I mean, when I came here, this looked like,
It's totally different. I was a student there 20 years ago, and it's totally different now.
my Lord, and it's only getting better. The facilities are we're in the midst of the expansion, and the talent levels on our team, and we're really starting to look like it's supposed to look. Size, length, speed, explosiveness, character, work ethic. Like these are dudes. Like, and these are dudes that are made of the right stuff. It's kind of hard to be here. You really don't fit in if you're not a real one. If you're a cut corners guy, if you're trying to find a way, you're gonna stick it like a sore thumb, man. So it was an awesome day, our deepest and most talented class. And as of now, I believe 29 of the 30 are expected to be here in January. Well, and that's as important as it gets. And now we shift into, of course, awaiting positive word on for the weekend and on Sunday, and preparing from there. And then after that, of course, roster retention portal. So cancel Christmas, buddy. We got to work.
Coach, I want to ask you about Jackson Cantwell. I know you get just freak show talent, a 6'7", 325 out of Nixa, Missouri. I'm just curious, just first time that his name kind of slides across your desk, you get word that, hey, there's just this, genetic mutant, son of two Olympians. You got to take a look at this kid. Your first impressions of him, and at what point did it click? Like, this is the guy that we just got to have.
Well, we've also often mentioned Jurassic Park. He's like the Jurassic Park, that one where all the mutants were at, like that other
Yeah.
island. They mutate into something totally different. Like he is that. I remember watching this film. I was probably 8 clips in. I'm like, what are we doing? Why are you showing me this film? Like, did this guy play for the Dolphins, the Steelers? Who's he playing for? And we hit it off. Coach Mirabal did a great job, hit it off with his family, and they came down last year to watch a game. And I come out the tunnel to meet him, and it was like, there's no way. At 16 years old, I mean, he's pressing in the high fours. He's a weight of five. His family off the charts, two Olympians. I mean, he's probably, I kid him all the time. He's the third best athlete in his family, you know? But it's a different level of power, acceleration, balance, and body control, speed as well, super high Q, work ethic. Like when he lifts people, it's not just a block, he launches people, you know? His recoverability, which is a word I don't even know if it exists on the when you're getting all your specs for players, but recoverability, the ability to be in a bad position. Let's say you got tripped, you're off balance, one hand's on the ground, but to be able to put a foot in the ground, get back in balance, and get a hand on a defender and block him, like he does things that that fourth and fifth year guys don't do. So as bright of a future as it gets, and he's complemented by five other guys that are absolutely awesome. I mean, this offensive line class is it's as good or better than anything I've been around.
Yeah, Coach. Another thing you guys did this cycle, which I thought was unique to, what you guys had done since you've gotten here. This fall, right? You guys, you talked about it on Wednesday, just the importance of senior evaluations. You guys flipped 9 guys during their senior years. I feel like recruiting's almost become this thing where in the summer it seems like everyone's stocking up their class, or it feels like you have to get all your guys in the summer. There's a lot of context that's still missing developmentally, right? That these guys haven't played their senior year. This is when they're older. This is when they should be peaking. Can you just talk about just the value of your staff of just sitting down in meetings, making sure you're still watching guys, you're still cutting up tape? It's like there's still a lot that we can do here. It seemed to be beneficial. There was a consensus that the guys you signed and took as seniors all elevated their stock in the recruiting rankings, whether us at 24/7 or just industry wide. Can you just talk about that process, why it's so important to you, and just the benefit of just making sure that that's still a priority?
Yeah, amen to that, brother. And Dennis Smith, who does an unbelievable job with his entire recruiting department, all those guys in there. I wouldn't have time to mention all of them, but I'll definitely tweet post it today because they're incredible. But Art Kehoe, former offensive line coach here, my coach, who I love, used to say it best. He said, recruiting is the most imperfect science in the world. You just don't really know how things are going to pan out. And football is the most developmental process-oriented sport in the world. You just don't know when it's gonna hit, right? Well, you've seen guys that are dormant for 3 years and boom, all of a sudden as a senior, they're superstars. I mean, you see it all the time. Look how many players in the NFL weren't even rated. So we really dive deep into senior year. And now that you have to deal with NIL and you have to spend money, the right way, and I would say you don't want to be wasteful. And I think we don't want to be in the race of getting commitments just to create buzz, right? It's winning on Saturdays, right? As opposed to just winning the commitment wars or even signing day. You want the right one. So we force ourselves to watch tape during obviously what's a very busy time of year during the season to make sure we're getting not only evals on the guys we're trying to look at and see some more stuff from, but also our commitments.
Hmm.
If there's, sometimes a guy goes the other way and we can't take him.
Hmm.
But we're very open and honest about that. But many other times, as it proved this year, guys are absolutely kicking butt and they're elevating their value, their process, their development. I mean, you look at the guys that we took, look at they might have jumped on all the different sites, but they were jumping off our boards before they jumped off those sites,
Right.
and that's what's most important. So yeah, it's critical. You have to keep doing that. And you have to keep when you're communicating with your prospects that you're watching and that you want to see that. You want to start coaching them before they get here. You want
Yeah.
to understand, brother, going backwards is not acceptable. Get better, you get worse. We're not looking at worse, we're looking at getting better. And you bring out stuff that you see on game film so they know, man, coach is really watching. He's not messing around. And so the deep dive into that has made our roster better. It has identified some of our best players on our roster. And yeah, that's going to be the way for us always going forward. Never get caught up in the wars of get the commitment, the big announcement. Oh, we got this guy. Oh, wait, don't worry about the ebbs and flows of emotional recruiting. Just go after the dudes that you know are going to help you win.
One more thing for me, and then we'll get you out of here, Coach. But as it relates to just the new reality of 105 scholarship players, right? I'm curious in some ways, and look, it's been a chaotic few years here from a talent acquisition standpoint of NIL, transfer portal, et cetera. seems like things are kind of slowly getting tightened up in those areas. There's still a ways to go there, but
Mhm.
this 105 scholarship count, and look, evaluation and culture is always at a premium for any football program. That's not changing,
Right.
but I am curious, like with the 105 now,
Mhm.
if that's even like more at a premium because look, classes are getting bigger. You're signing 30 guys now. Evaluation is critical when you're signing 30 guys. You don't want to take a bunch of guys that don't belong in your program for whatever reason, talent or culturally. Um, and you know, you have to identify guys, I think, too, with 105 scholarships that are willing, frankly, to like go through the development process of like, okay, I'm going to work hard, even if I'm not necessarily seeing the field as early as I would like, because now there's 105 guys on this roster with me that are also very talented. Just identifying not only like the guys where you feel like you can find value with evaluation standpoint, however you want to categorize value, but also just mentality wise of like again, offensive line is such a developmental position. And it's very rare for an offensive lineman to come in and be able to play as a true freshman. We talked about one guy who might have that potential. Um, but those like positions that require a lot of development in a 105 now, you got to find the guys that are talented, have the right mentality, and are willing to be a part of a culture that embraces that. Does all that make sense to you? I don't know if I'm rambling, but I think the
No.
105 kind of changes things in some ways of like what you're looking for as you continue to sustain your program and build.
Yeah, no, you're 100% on. It's a challenge because just as much as anything else, 105 bodies really isn't enough to get you through a season.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to start changing the way you practice as the last 6 weeks of the season because think about it, people say the NFL, I don't know what the number is, 58, 60. I don't keep up with the NFL, but they cycle through approximately 130 people a year. Now, these are 130 players that have experience, that have played college football, have played pro football, off injured reserve, or whatever it may be. But the rosters in college were always made up of 80 scholarship player, 85, and usually 25 were freshmen to 30.
Right.
And then you had approximately 40 walk-ons that need a lot of development. Well, now you take away 20 of those, it's like, whoa,
Right.
how do we actually practice deep into the season? So, but that being said, I think one thing you have to look at, make sure that for them, that money's not the driving force
Right.
because money makes things good sometimes, but really can make things go sideways, especially when, you know, the human element comes in, right? Because let's call it what it is, brother. Football isn't complicated. Blocking, tackling, leverage, hats, right? Throwing, catching. Football's not complicated, but people are, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, it has to be the right makeup, the right DNA, and the right mentality. It has to be dudes that understand that they have to earn. Especially the way you see the way we practice. We practice like we practice under Coach Johnson, Coach Erickson, like we go.
Right.
There's no different in that blueprint, and that's not for everybody. And these guys are signing contracts, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is a two-way street now,
Hmm.
100%. Now look, you don't ever change the principles of coaching because coaching is a vocation. It's teaching, it's mentoring, it's the best thing in the entire world. But there's an added responsibility of not wasting funds, right?
Hmm.
On people that aren't made of the right stuff or are willing to do the things necessary to make the program go this way. Because it is a two-way street. We develop people, they accomplish their goals, their dreams, their aspirations. The University of Miami has to get better and keep
Hmm.
winning, right? And so as long as everybody's on the same page there, it works out really, really well. And we've really just upped the level and caliber of player, human being with the classes that we have signed. But you're right, man. This part right here is at a premium and cannot be compromised for anything. No.
Coach, last thing for me, this recruiting stuff, it never stops. It goes in cycles.
Never stops.
This,
Never stops.
right. Back-to-back 10-win seasons, right? You guys are on the cusp of a potential college football playoff run. That's a lot of sort of ammunition to go onto the recruiting trails. You got to stack classes. You know that better than anyone. It's not just a one-off. You could win 10 win, you can have a 10-win season, then you can go down, you can have a 2-win season. Like it's about sustaining and building these things up. Just as you move forward, in this recruiting process, obviously you got the portal coming up and all that stuff. Just how amped are you about just what you guys kind of have, what you guys have built to continue to push that into, future recruiting classes as you kind of go and continue to go and try nationally and continue to elevate the program by stacking, elite prospects, elite people as you want to do.
Oh, I mean, I'm more motivated than ever. I mean, and that's hard because I always say that every single year. Just the appetite grows more and more. And it's got to be, besides the players that are coming to Miami, it's also the people in the building. You got to have motivated staff. You got to have staff that's willing to work because, like you mentioned, you could go from 10 wins to 2 wins like that.
Mhm.
You skip one class or you skip a developmental cycle, or if you're not invested in strength and conditioning, if you're not invested in developing the right way, you will quickly lose your edge and go the other way. And to prevent that, all it takes is every ounce of what you have. I just want to be honest with you. You have to, like, even staff members here, which I think they probably think I'm a pain in the you know what all the time. And I am, and there's no apologies for it. And we're lucky we have a lot of people that grind and are willing to work, but they know they're going to get pushed. They know that we're going to set the tempo, we're going to set the pace at a certain level, and it's got to go. And everyone here is fueled, is enthused, is energized because of how things are progressing, the way our program has elevated, and we all feel and know that we're going to be even better going forward because of the people in the building, because of the push by our administration, the investment of our administration. Our players are attracting even better players. Coaching here has become a really hot commodity. Coaches want to come here and coach. More investors, are now starting. We want more, need more, right? That's always a battle that never stops. It's an unbelievable time to be a University of Miami Hurricane, and it ain't stopping anytime soon. There is like absolutely, there's no throttling down, brother. It's the best. It's the absolute best. It's, what can I say, man? It's the best. There's nothing like it. And you know what? Every ounce of our existence is invested in it. And no one's looking for a pat on the back on that. I could give a crap about that. All I care is about the University of Miami winning and our players developing, growing, becoming elite fathers, husbands, members of society, NFL players, lawyers, whatever they want to do. But making sure that Miami keeps going and gets all the way there and stays there. And so anything else, I could, cancel Christmas, man. I'm good.
Coach, we appreciate your time. It's been a lot of hard work to get the program to this point, and it's not done yet. Uh, we'll all be we'll all be watching this weekend along with you. And look, man, you are out there waging war against, this college football playoff ranking. We'll see if the committee does the right thing. I think we're going to see your face all over the place this weekend, rightfully so, because Coach is going to fight for his program, especially in this type of situation where it's just such a common sense decision. So we will pray and hope that common sense prevails here as it relates to the debate or battle or however you want to phrase this between Miami and Notre Dame. Again, a decision that was determined on the field. So appreciate everyone for listening. Until next time, take care.
Appreciate you guys. Go Canes.